Let me begin with a repair bill. A power wheelchair stops working in the middle of a week. The user has a job, a family, a schedule. The service centers report that the controller has failed. The cost of replacement is more than what many families earn in a month. The health insurance policy that covered the hospital stay at the time of injury does not cover this repair. The policy treats the wheelchair as if it is a luxury, not as something essential to its users' mobility. This is not an unusual situation. It is a routine one. Devices fail, parts wear out, and users are expected to manage these failures on their own. And this is the point from which I want to begin. Not with the device at the moment of its launch, but with what happens after. A prosthetic limb is given, a hearing aid is fitted. Every device begins a long ongoing relationship with the user. Straps loosen, batteries lose charge faster over time, softwares need reconfiguration, bodies change, children grow. The same wheelchair or caliper that fits today may cause discomfort later. While each of these may appear small on its own, taken together they shape whether the device can actually be used over time. Clinical guidance suggests that prosthetic sockets often need adjustment or replacement within 1 or 2 years depending on bodily changes. Liners and interface components also wear out with daily use. These are not exceptional situations, they are part of normal use. Consider a deaf student using digital hearing aids in a government college. On paper, she has received assistive technology. In practice, every few months, she needs new batteries, new ear molds, cleaning, tuning, and sometimes replacement of one side. Each of these requires time and money. If one device fails during the examination period, there is no public attention. There is only a quiet disruption. Hearing aids require recurring expenditure on batteries, tubing, services, and calibration. These are ongoing costs, not one-time expenses. The technology is not a one-time intervention. It requires continuous maintenance. Now let us turn to cost, because this is where the gap between promise and the use becomes most visible. Ashley Shue notes that even in high-income contexts, the most visible prosthetic technologies remain inaccessible to most users. Out that in the United States, African Americans are amputated at significantly higher rates, yet the technologies that receive media attention do not reflect what is actually available to most people. A similar pattern is visible in India. I am going to reiterate the numbers we mentioned in passing in the previous video. A basic lower limb from Limco costs between 10,000 to 30,000 rupees. An IIT Guwahati design which allows sitting cross-legged and squatting is estimated at around 25,000 rupees. Private hospital prosthetic packages can cost 2 to 3 lakh rupees. A computerized knee comparable to C-leg is priced at 7 lakh rupees. An imported bionic arm with sensors can exceed rupees 10 lakhs. So, even before maintenance begins, access is already uneven. That is, these are just the acquisition costs. Even at this stage, many devices remain inaccessible. According to the World Health Organization's Global Report on Accessible Technology 2022, globally only about 1 to 10 people who need assistive products have access to them, with the affordability and lack of coverage identified as key barriers. Even the Jaipur foot, which we discussed earlier, has an average usable life of approximately 3 to 7 years before replacement is required. And replacement is not optional. It is built into the use of device. This brings us to the government schemes. The Assistant to Disabled Persons adips scheme, a government program that provides assistive devices at subsidized cost or no cost, attempts to reduce the initial cost barrier. Eligible persons below a certain income threshold may receive aids and appliances either free of cost or at a subsidized rate. There are also timelines for reapplication for certain devices. In practice, devices are often distributed through camps or institutional channels where time for fitting and follow-up is limited. However, subsidy is not the same as long-term support. ADIP supports the initial acquisition and fitting. It does not ensure that when the device fails in its second or third year, repair costs will be covered. It does not cover replacement of components such as motors, liners or batteries. It does not address the cost of ongoing adjustments as the user's body changes. There is no guarantee that a device that is distributed will continue to function. There is no system that tracks this. There is no mechanism that ensures repair. The state supports the moment of distribution but not the life cycle of the device. After the point of provision, the financial responsibility shifts to the individual and the family. On the insurance side, there have been some regulatory developments. Following directions from the Delhi High Court in 2022, the Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India, the national body that regulates insurance companies and approves insurance products, issued a circular in February 2023 requiring insurers to offer at least one health product for persons with disabilities, people living with HIV, and people with mental illness. On paper, this appears to be a step forward. In practice, there are significant limitations. Many policies are restricted to what are classified as benchmark disabilities, a legal category referring to specific disabilities meeting a defined threshold of severity under Indian law, excluding a large number of users. Standard exclusions often remain unchanged. Several policies exclude prostheses, assistive devices, and external equipment such as wheelchairs, walkers, and braces unless these are part of surgical procedure. Standard policies classify these as external aids and appliances, devices used outside the body such as wheelchair, hearing aids, and prosthetic limbs, which are typically excluded from coverage. Insurance is structured around episodes of care. It covers diagnosis, hospitalization, and procedures. It does not extend to the conditions of living after discharge. Across most policies, maintenance costs, including servicing, replacement of parts, batteries, and calibration, are explicitly excluded. In India, out-of-pocket expenditure, meaning costs paid directly by individuals rather than covered by insurance, accounts for roughly 48 to 55% of total health spending. Assistive devices and their maintenance fall largely within this out-of-pocket burden. As a result, the financial responsibility shifts almost entirely to the user after the point of provision, even when the device is essential for daily functioning. In effect, the system recognizes medical intervention within the hospital but not the tools required for everyday life outside it. What is covered is the moment of intervention. What is not covered is everything that follows. This becomes clearer in the case of Armaan Ali. Armaan Ali is the Executive Director of National Center for Promotion of Employment for Disabled People, NCPDP, a policy and advocacy organization working on disability rights in India. Armaan sought to insure his customized wheelchair. This is a device central to his mobility and work. However, insurers did not have a ready framework for this. The wheelchair in question was a customized mobility device designed for long-term use, posture support, and independent movement. Despite this, it did not fit into the existing insurance categories. In insurance classification, such devices are treated as durable medical equipment or external aids, which are typically excluded unless linked to hospital-based treatment. After a sustained advocacy, including engagement with the National Human Rights Commission, a statutory body that addresses human rights violation in India, the IRDAI, a state-run insurer, agreed to provide coverage. This required formal complaints, regulatory engagement, and repeated follow-up. There was no existing policy framework that could be directly applied. This was reported as a rare instance. What should have been a routine claim required escalation across institutions. The outcome did not result in a general policy change, it remained a case-specific resolution. If this is the process required for well-known advocate, the barrier for others are significantly higher. Most users do not have access to legal support, institutional networks, or the time required to pursue such claims. When formal systems do not provide support, alternatives emerge. In many regions, there are no authorized repair centers within accessible distance. Users rely on local repair systems. Wheelchair tires are repaired at puncture shops. Calipers are welded by local fabricators. Straps are stitched by cobblers. This is often described as ingenuity or jugaad in Hindi. It is more accurately understood as a response to the absence of formal support systems. They are not designed repair systems, they are stopgap responses. And while these repairs may restore basic function, but they do not account for alignment, biomechanics, and safety. For users in rural areas, the situation is more complex. Accessing a repair center may require long distance travel, multiple days away from work, and additional expenses. These costs remain invisible even though they determine whether a device can be used at all. We count devices distributed, we do not track whether they remain usable over time. Studies estimate that 30 to 50% of assistive devices are abandoned or underused, often due to cost, poor fit, or lack of repair support. There is also a broader regulatory question, the right to repair. The right to repair refers to the ability of users to access spare parts, repair manuals, diagnostic tools, and independent service options rather than being restricted to manufacturers or authorized centers. Globally, this movement focuses on enabling users to access spare parts, repair manuals, and independent service points. In some jurisdictions, wheelchair repair has been recognized as a rights issue. In the United States, several states have introduced right to repair laws that include provisions for powered wheelchairs, recognizing that delays in repair can directly affect mobility and independence. In the European Union, regulations require manufacturers of certain products to make spare parts and repair information available for a defined period as part of consumer protection and sustainability policy frameworks. These developments are based on the recognition that access to repair is essential to continued use. In India, a right to repair framework exists for sectors such as electronics and automobiles. The Department of Consumer Affairs has introduced a right to repair portal covering products such as mobile phones, consumer electronics, automobiles, and agricultural equipment. Assisted devices are not included within this framework. This means that users of assistive technology often cannot access original spare parts, technical documentation, or independent repair services. Manufacturers and suppliers may retain control over servicing, which can lead to higher costs, delays, and limited availability of repairs, particularly outside major urban areas. In practice, this creates dependence not only on the device but on the system that controls its repair. This exclusion reflects how assistive devices are still treated primarily within the medical framework rather than as everyday tools over which users should have control. Without access to parts, information, and service, the user does not control the device, the system does. So, what should we be asking instead? We already insure other forms of equipment, industrial machinery, transport fleets, and medical equipment are routinely covered. The technical and financial mechanisms exist. What is missing is recognition. Recognition that assistive devices are not optional, they are part of the infrastructure of everyday life. If the framework is to align with the principles such as those in the UNCRPD, the focus must shift. International disability frameworks recognize access to assistive devices as a part of mobility and rehabilitation, implying continuity rather than one-time provision. From how many devices are distributed to how many remain usable, from initial cost to life cycle support, from provision to accountability.
So now that you have seen all the 5 videos, I'm coming back to you, and because I watched them with you and sharing with you what were my learnings. I think what I'd said at the start, it comes through that this is a very driven by the medical model kind of intervention. The driving force in every one of them in one or the other way is to make people with disabilities as close to the non-disabled as possible. But don't you think, at least I felt, that the effort is half-hearted? Because questions of cost, maintenance, repair and insurance have not even been addressed, or addressed very, very peripherally. I somewhere felt that people with disabilities are not seen as consumers, but more like recipients of welfare. Consequently, the providing of the device or the appliance is seen as a one-time activity, not a lifelong relationship. Let's compare this with the non-disabled world. Anything you buy, even if, like, they will offer you a maintenance agreement along with, when you buy anything, you buy a water purifier, they'll give you a maintenance agreement along with, and say that if you take the maintenance agreement, you buy a TV, you buy a, it's that absence, I think, hits very hard. If we are saying technology is so important for people with disabilities, then should not this be seen as an entire package? For neurodivergent persons, the professional experts' help is in many ways making things worse. I accept, and that I think it's important for all us to say, that to some extent, all of us have to do things we don't care for or we don't like. There is a case for the average, and there is a case for us, because if each one had to be so very individually customized, it will be impossible to live as a society or as a community. But so there is a case for the average. But an average requires the counting of all numbers at their true value. Neurodivergence needs to be counted along with the neurotypical to make the human average. So, and the cochlear implant video, at least what it made me feel was that we need to listen more before remedies are imposed. And when parents are making choices, and I don't think anybody to that extent is questioning the good faith there, but I think it's important to keep in mind that when parents are making choices, they need to make them so that the other option is not closed. So what next week? We're moving from the assistive package to the realm of access, and look at how questions of access are addressed and need to be addressed for persons with disabilities.